my name is Andris. This is Heavy Rain Sound Studio, and this is where Project 3 have recorded their first debut LP, Control. Heavy Rain Sound Studio is a hybrid studio. I really like the digital workflow, but I really believe in having more and more analog gear in the studio, and that's what I use for Project 3s, especially for metal, because it has to be heavy, it has to be punchy, it has to be whatever they want to be, and I use a few high-stand analog gear. I'm planning to progress and get more in the future, but let's have a look what I have. Okay, so basically I wanted a really clear sounding bass, so I have the lovely ISA 430 MK2, which is very well known about its crystal clear and very clear sounding transformer. So we use that on bass. We also use the same for guitars, because we wanted the clarity, have that crystal clear clarity. And for mixing, I also used the ISA 430 for snare to get that punchiness in the snare sound. And my chain went into the distressor after that, and I used the Brit mod, which I love a lot. So both the snare and the kick has the Brit mod on. I've added a bit of tubey saturation to the vocals to have the separation. Many times I don't EQ, I use saturation instead. So like if I want something to shine, I use tape. If I want that nice and warm, I use the tube saturation. And the Brit mod is just amazing for kick and snare. For the mastering, I use my Radio Man, which is basically an SSL clone made in Germany. Well, basically it's cost third the price, but does the same job. So it sounds amazing. It's very warm. It's very dark. I have to be honest, I use it on any of the tracks all the time. I use it for drum buses, but I mainly use it in mastering to glue things together and add that warmness and add that darkness into the sound. I think that's it. I got the project from James. I had to listen to the recordings, and I thought, what if we have a universal sound for each of the songs? So that's why I wanted to do a re-recording of the guitar. And I also had this idea of reamping it. And basically for reamping, I used one of these double microphone techniques. So I used an Audix D2, which is a tone microphone, but it's brilliant on guitar. It's very warm and clean. And I used the good old SM57, and I placed it. What was the cab we used? It was a 4x12 Marshall, yeah.
1960.
Yeah.
A.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 1960A. Basically, easy technique. Everybody knows it if you Google it. You put one microphone in the middle of the cone, put the other one on the side of the other cone, and basically you get a bright and the dark sound. Then I just blended it together on the way back. And we used two different heads. One was an orange, the other one was a very clean
Marshall Super Lead.
Yeah, Marshall Super Lead. So for the recordings, for the guitars, we've used this pedal, Silver Eclipse. The reason this is my go-to pedal is because this pedal can do anything from very clean to extremely distorted, and I think usually pedals cannot do that. They can do either bit of distorted and heavily distorted, or very too clean, but this can do anything. So we used this with the Marshall head and the orange head to create that very heavy over distorted sound.
That's a question I will ask you also. It's like with the Marshall Super Bass, Super Lead or whatever it's called, with the orange, it's like, did you use the Marshall for the main like Brain Bug, where it's like a very low F sound anyway, or did you then switch between?
No, I never switched. What I did was, so your guitars are always there with each. So I think left side is the Marshall, right side is the orange, and I've never changed that, because in some songs you are playing higher, some songs you are playing lower, it will always benefit from the other one. So for the lower ones, the Marshalls seem to be better for me because it has the sizzly sound and very clean. But for like higher tune stuff, the Orange was really good because it was more crunchy a bit. So I just kept it that way, because each of the songs are so different. You're not in the same tuning all the time. Well, basically, I never EQ at that phase. So like I keep everything original. There was no low cut, to get rid of that low end rumble, and then you could feel, the buzz and everything everywhere. You could feel it with your feet. But I was like, we want that raw sound. I recorded the DI signal of the bass. I never used an amp with it. I didn't even use an amp simulator. What I did was I sent it through the ISA 432 to get that clarity, that nice and warm sound. Very, very soft compression on it. That has a VCA compressor, which is quite clean. What I did was I sent it into the distressor and I put on the distortion 2 on it, which is the tube type warm sizzle. So it didn't overload it, or it was not very distorted, but you get that very sweet sounding fuzz. So the bass has that, and I think it benefited from it, especially like in Hater. You got those slaps. That stuff, it just comes out more. I could see it's a little more dynamic. Also, I found in Brainbug, because with Brainbug, and for anyone who's bothered interesting, I actually tuned the bass guitar string up to F, so it was in E standard, so then I tuned up to F, so actually the guitar is lower timbrally than the bass, so you've got that conflict, which is what I just 100% stole from Meshuggah, because that's how they do it. The bass guitar is louder than the guitars because they've got stronger tension on it. Because I know you've said it, but I have never. To be fair, when I mix stuff, I don't really listen to that. So I just focused on that. It was quite challenging to work with Project 3 because we used A strings, and to be fair, when I recorded Tim, I was like very, very happy because his kick is tuned a bit higher than usual. So I'm like, okay, maybe the A string can go below the kick, and then it will be easy to sort. But Tim's kick was most active around 90 to 100 hertz, and like F sharp is about 91 hertz. So like kick and guitar colliding. It was quite challenging. I thought about many ways to overcome this, and at the same time James wanted it to be very beefy, and I think you wanted like a very beefy sound, don't you?
James wanted this really fat subby sound, and I was happy to oblige because it's F sharp on the bass. It is stupid low. Actually no, it wasn't even F sharp, it was F. We were a half step down, so we were like quite
so it
low.
was F?
It was F. Why have we tuned it wrong?
No, I thought it's F sharp.
No, F sharp's like the standard, and I tuned it even lower.
Jesus, okay, so
I wanted to do drop E, but
thanks to Alex, it was a challenge.
I actually wanted to put it in drop E so I could get really low, but the amps can handle it.
I think that's if F sharp is 91 hertz, then it's even more below. But anyway, it still didn't help because I thought Tim's kick's gonna help. Well, basically, Tim wanted that very aggressive kick, and I think James wanted the aggressive kick. So we didn't go with the, I would say, usual habits today, because these days when you listen to music, they are all mixed like, I wouldn't say pop music fully, but when you listen to it, there's no punchiness in the kick anymore. All you hear is the big tick, 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 the clicking all the time. And there's no low end, I think that's what metal is about, it's like raw, it's heavy. So I messaged James many times. I asked him many times. I took notes, and he said he really he likes this 90s vibe, like think about around 2000 when Iowa came out from Slipknot, or think about Slayer, all that. So even if I listen to the songs like Hater, like even the name says it. How aggressive is it? So just Heavy Rain Sound Studio. Popping for a coffee, and sponsored by Heavy Rain Sound Studio. originally I was meant to mix MIDI drums, but then I made a post about the project, and Tim Lowe loved it so much that he said, "Alright guys, I want to play for this album." And I loved him. I love his playing because he can do like anything. If you want pop, disco, country, whatever, jazz, he will do it. And his drum set is amazing, and he's one of the rarest drummers who tunes his drum set.
Oh good.
Yeah. No, seriously, like he tunes his toms, he cares about his snare sound, he cares about his kick sound and everything, and it just shines, you know. And he has those lovely zillion bells, which
yeah, they're nice. And
well, basically I used a very, very basic microphone setup for the drums. I just went for what works, so I used an SM57 on the snare. I used a Row NT5 on the bottom of the snare. Tim also had a second snare, a reggae snare, so I used another NT5 on his reggae snare. We didn't use anything for the bottom to have that Congo bongo type of...
Congo bongo?
I don't know how you call it.
Congo?
You know, the congos, bongos, whatever you call them.
Bongos?
Bongos.
Just what you want for a heavy metal album.
Yeah. Just for
George.
But he only used the reggae snare in one song.
It was turning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the end of turning that.
And there's also one hit in the middle of the song. He hits it once. I use my trusted Audix microphone set for the toms and kick. I used the Audix D2 for toms, floor tom as well. I don't have an Audix D4 because it sounds too snappy. I like the warm sound, clean sounding stuff. And I used an Audix D6 for the kick, which is my go-to microphone. Some people say it's not good for studio. I love it. And you just listen to the songs and you know, it sounds amazing.
With the drum placement, was there any, when you were just setting up, was there any ideas that you had for placement in that room, specifically considering it's more acoustically bright?
Well, basically the only thing I had in my head was to have this raw sounding drum, so I didn't want to go over process with it. So I used quite a few microphones. I didn't use any overheads, so I was what I wanted to do is I wanted to blend so I used two NT5s, Rode NT5s for the cymbals.
Yes.
But in a way it's also recording the toms, because normally you would use a few for the cymbals and then use an overhead. I didn't use overheads because I believe in less is more.
Yeah.
So basically I blended that together with the panned toms. That's why you get that nice 3D feel when Tim's doing the fills, you know, he goes around.
Yeah.
Plus it's mixed together with the room mic.
Yeah.
So